If you're an avid listener of the podcast, you will know I love to talk about investing and pensions as they are the two ways of building wealth. But did you know if you follow the right steps, you could actually retire a millionaire? Yes, you heard me. That figure with 6 zeros on the end. To help me delve into how you can actually retire a millionaire, I'm joined with Ryan King, founder of Making Money Simple and now author of Stop Waiting, Start Investing. Hi Ryan, how are you?
Hi, Ola. I'm good, thank you. Good to be here.
I'm going to say you've come all the way from Australia just to be on the All Things Money podcast.
100% true.
But it's
Podcast
so nice. Yeah, it's nice to be reunited though. I haven't seen you, in like nearly 2 years?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years. It's good to be back. When I've done these podcasts before with you,
Yeah,
it was all virtual. Now you got your own studio. It's looking good.
Got like the fancy lights, the setup, the cameras,
Yeah.
and now you're in the hot seat. How are you feeling?
No, it's good. I like doing these podcasts. So looking forward to talking about investing and hopefully helping some people out.
Amazing. Well, obviously, you're a good friend of mine, but for those listening who haven't listened to a podcast before or don't know who you are, please introduce yourself to everyone listening.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan King, 27 years old. I work a 9-to-5 day job as a chartered accountant, and then on the side started Making Money Simple back in 2019, originally just as sharing some little graphics on some very basic personal financing and personal finance and investing bits. And then over time it's grown across all social medias, and now I've got a book out, which is mental. So,
I have your book here. We've got like 3 copies in the studio, but I've got one here on camera.
Trying to promote it.
And yeah, I think it looks incredible. I'm actually mentioned in the book, which is very, very kind. And yeah, what a journey you've been on since you started Making Money Simple. When and why did you start it?
Yeah, originally, so I was in my final year of university, and I was always quite interested in sort of personal finance and investing, but I didn't really know much about it other than just like seeing stuff on the news or seeing films where Wolf of Wall Street made it seem mental. It was actually, the year before my final year of university, I was in the placement year working in London, and I read a load of finance books.
Yeah.
That got me into it. I then started following some accounts on Instagram and realized that all the people were just American and there was no real UK finance people. Obviously a lot different now. There's loads of us. That was what originally got me to start a blog and an Instagram in 2019, just to sort of break down some very, very basic stuff. And then, over time it's grown to now it's like videos and podcasts, and yeah, it's mental.
And now a book.
And now a book, the pinnacle of it.
You're an actual author. Like your book is literally narrowly out in the open. How does it feel now you're an author?
I'm absolutely buzzing, to be honest with you. Yeah, because obviously it was a long time in making in the process, and then even with the publisher Harriman House, working with them for 18 months, and then to finally get some copies in the post, physical copies in October 2024 was mental. And now it's finally out. You're holding a copy. People have got copies, so yeah, it's mental.
Wow, well, congratulations. That's a huge achievement. But I kind of want to get you warmed up in the seat today. So I've got a couple of quick fire questions. So obviously you've written your book, which is a big achievement. But what would you say has also been your greatest financial achievement?
I'd probably say getting to £100,000 invested.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So it didn't happen overnight. It took me about 6.5 years from when I first started investing.
Wow.
Which seems pretty mad because I also started Making Money Simple now 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got February 2024. After 6.5 years of investing, I got to £100,000 invested. So that's everything, pensions, ISAs, everything. And now actually, at time of recording, I'm actually now at £140,000 invested. So it sort of shows, and there's a really good quote that says the first 100K invested is the hardest. So it really sort of shows how once you get to that 6-figure mark, it just starts compounding and growing like mad, particularly when there's some good months in the markets.
Yeah. Want to share some of that?
It's locked up, unfortunately. I can't even give it to my mum,
Not for the fiver. You're an author and you've got 140k invested.
Yeah. It's pretty mad to feel. I think
incredible.
when you do start investing though, because I haven't felt it to myself, it seems so pointless in the early days, like a few £100 here and there. Even as an amazing year in the stock market, you only make a few £100. But it's really just those consistent contributions and doing that for years and years and years. Then when you look back, you got 5 or 6 figures invested, and it's absolutely mental. So if anyone just starting out or in the early years, I'd definitely say stick with it. You might be able to build wealth quicker than me, slower than me. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're investing consistently, you're going to be in a better position financially in 7 years, 27 years. Yeah.
This is why we have you on the podcast today, Ryan, because wow, I've always known you as being an avid investor, so obviously you've got the knowledge. But I guess my second question for you is, you probably don't need to win the lottery, but if you did win the lottery, what would you spend your money on?
Put it all in index funds. I would actually invest a bit of it, to be fair.
Yeah,
I haven't got a house yet, so I'd probably just buy a house, maybe a couple of houses, one in England, one in Australia.
Yeah,
where I'm
now we're
currently
talking.
Depends how much I win. I'll probably get a house, maybe a couple of houses. I think it'd be cool actually. So I've got no property, so you need a lot of capital obviously to start investing in property. So if I could start a little property portfolio, that'd be good. But I'd also give some money to my parents, give a bit of money away. I probably wouldn't really spend it. Maybe go out traveling for a year and then invest. So got to be on brand here.
Yes, always. Obviously, we've used the word investing a couple of times now. So just in case there's anyone listening to the podcast that's thinking, what is investing? What does it mean to invest? What is investing, Ryan?
So it's simply where you are putting away some money today to hopefully generate a return over the long term. So putting your money to work, people call it. If you think about the sort of alternatives, you can either spend your money, but obviously once you spend it, it's gone.
Yep.
Or you can save your money, which is definitely great. And saving money is an important skill to learn. You might have to save for a house, save for Christmas presents, save for whatever it is.
Yes.
But ultimately, saving will usually lose out due to inflation because interest rates on your cash are normally lower than inflation. So it's good to save, but it's not good over the long term because your money's being eroded by inflation, which is the general increase of prices over time. So the third option is then investing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to save your way to wealth and financial freedom, which is why you got to invest, whether it's into stocks, property, crypto, your own business, whatever it is. But yeah, you got to invest to then grow your wealth. And hopefully the goal is to one day live off of that money. And even if you're starting later, it's still worth investing.
Yeah.
It's better to start late than never. Because even if you start later or you can't contribute as much because your salary is a bit lower, you're still going to build up a pot that you can one day live off of, whether it's either just living off a bit of it and doing part-time work, passing it down to children or family. So whatever age you are, just start. And it doesn't matter how big your pot gets because it's better than nothing.
Yeah, 100%. And look, investing, I feel like, is something that still people find out of reach, even though investing now for the retail investor is actually very, very easy. And obviously in the introduction, I mentioned how people can actually go and retire a millionaire because I think, again, people often underestimate the power of their pension, right? So how much do you think, if you know, how much would someone need to invest annually into their ISA or pension to hit that £1 million target by retirement?
I did the maths actually
on
this. So compound interest calculator you can find online.
Yeah.
I use one called the calculatorSite.com. But if you type in compound interest calculator, there's loads. And there's three main inputs to sort of working out how much you'll end up with. And obviously I've done this to work out how much to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
The three main inputs are your own contributions, which realistically is the most important thing.
Yes.
That's the only one in your control. So that's your initial investment, if you have a lump sum, and then how much you can invest per month. The second input is then your rate of return. This can vary, but I generally use 7%, which is an after inflation average return of the stock market over the long term. So this is after inflation. I always get comments like, oh, it's going to be worth nothing in 30 years. No, 7% after inflation.
Yeah.
And then the third input, and this is actually probably the most important one, is time. So how many years you're investing for, because the more years you're investing for, the more compound interest you're going to get and the more you're going to end up with. But to get to a millionaire, using that 7% rate of return, if you can invest £500 per month for 37 years, you will get to just over £1 million.
Wow.
Or, so that's like, hopefully, even if, because if you think about it, if you have like a job you enjoy and you don't mind doing it for decades and you can still invest 500 quid a month, you can almost guarantee yourself to become a millionaire. And this is actually after inflation as well. Another one though, is if you start again with £0 and you invest £1,000 a month, I appreciate that's much more, but it'd only take you 28 years to get to a millionaire. So you can sort of see how if you can either, if you can really increase your contributions today, then you can sort of, get to become a millionaire quicker. It's probably worth saying as well though, even though millionaire is a good number to aim for, it depends, because retirement's more of a sort of a number than an age.
Yes.
So if you can actually live quite a frugal lifestyle, you probably, and you're not fussed about massive houses, flashy cars, extravagant life, you probably actually can retire on a pot that's a lot smaller than this. But yeah, they're the three main inputs: your contributions, the interest rate or rate of return, 7%, and then time. And hopefully you can see that, if you can either increase your time, you'll get more compound interest. If you can increase your contributions, you'll get there quicker. And doing this through ISAs and pensions, you'll keep most of the money in your own pocket.
Wow.
So
I'm not going to lie, I would have thought you would needed way more per month. And this is what I'm saying, guys, you can actually retire a millionaire because for some people, now I'm not going to say everyone, some people can invest £500 a month with their employer contribution. So if £500 is going into their pension pot, that means they'll be retiring a millionaire if they started investing, let's say at 22, when you start your very first time job. But that's given me hope now that maybe I can retire a millionaire if I keep at how much I'm investing at the moment, because I think people underestimate that.
And that's why it's so important to start early. If you haven't, if you're not obviously a bit younger, still get started. But if you are listening to this and you're 18, 25, 30, starting your first job, whatever it is, you really can just even invest little amounts and they're going to compound for literally decades and decades to come. And it's good that you mentioned workplace pension, because in that example, £1,000 a month, it sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money to invest per month. I know not everyone can do that, but if you're on an average UK salary of about £35,000 and you are able to get, say, a 5% employer match workplace contribution, then you've really got 10% going into your workplace pension every single year, and that's per month about 300 quid. So you're nearly 300 quid of the 500 or 700 or £1,000 to get there. So, and if you've got a partner doing that as well, you can really see how you can sort of build wealth for yourself and for like your family quite quickly, just by prioritizing and focusing on investing. And then obviously chuck a stocks and shares ISA in there as well, and then all of a sudden you're building a lot of wealth.
Yeah, and I think what I love about this conversation right now is having the numbers to it, right? Because I feel like on the podcast, I'm always saying to people, invest your money, invest in your pension, but I feel like no one can really see the value of it until numbers are being thrown out. So I think that makes it either realistic or gives people an aim to work towards, because I think maybe £500 can be now that magic number for a lot of people. But obviously we've used some keywords there as well, ISAs, pensions. What's the difference with investing in your ISA compared to your pension?
Yeah, so when it comes to investing, there's 3 steps to start investing. You've got choosing the platform, choosing an investing account, and then choosing an actual investment. So ISAs and pensions, step 2, choosing an actual account. And the best way to describe these is they're just simply wrappers that you put your actual investments in, and these wrappers, ISAs and pensions, have different pros and cons. They're almost sort of like exactly opposite. So with an ISA, we contribute to it out of our net pay. So we earn some money, pay income tax, student loan, whatever it is. You receive, say, £2,000 into your bank account, and you then contribute to your ISA out of that. But then once it's in a stocks and shares ISA, you never pay tax again. So it grows capital gains tax-free and dividend tax-free. So it saves a massive tax headache down the line because it's completely tax-free. And really the main pro of stocks and shares ISAs is that completely flexible. So if you are on a high salary or you are able to build that pot up quickly, you can actually live off of it and draw down on it whenever you want. So hypothetically, you get to £1 million if you're lucky by 40, you can then start drawing down on that straight away with no penalties or no fees for accessing it early. And we get a massive £20,000 allowance. So it's absolutely brilliant, because I mean, it's very few people max it out because it's so much money. But so the more you can, don't be, I think people always say to me like, oh, I can only put like £3,000 in, what's the point? Definitely better than nothing. When I first started doing it, I was only putting £100 in a month. So I was using hardly any of the allowance, but it's still definitely worth doing. And then the other option is pensions. So a bit more to pensions, but you contribute to a pension out of your gross pay. So you avoid some income tax today. They also grow completely capital gains tax and dividend tax free. But then when you come to withdraw it, depends on how you draw it down, you probably will have to pay some tax. So you can take 25% tax free and then the rest of it is taxable. It sort of depends how you draw it down. One of the great things about pensions is that tax relief that you get though. So particularly if you're a higher income earner or an additional income earner where you have a really high salary, you can get massive tax relief and have more and more money compounding over the long term. The downside is though, they are inflexible. So you can't access them until you're 55, which is going up to 57 in 2028. By the time we get there, it'll probably be 60 or 65. They're trying to kick the can down the line. But yeah, that sort of pensions. One massive benefit of pensions is though, workplace pension. You sort of got workplace pensions for your employer and then a private pension or a SIP. With a workplace pension, you should get an employer match. So if they offer 5%, just put in at least 5%. If they offer 10%, put in 10%. It's literally free money. Then you've got double the amount of money compounding for the next 30, 40 years. And you can really see how people's pension pots just get absolutely massive because you're getting tax relief, getting free money, and that's just compounding for decades. So it really is like the easiest and best, not very sexy, it's like crypto or like Tesla, but it's like the best and easiest way to build your wealth in the UK by a mile. And if you can combine that with stocks and shares ISAs, you got 2 pots going, and you can then sort of start thinking, okay, maybe I can live off of my stocks and shares ISA from 40 to 55, then get my workplace pension from 55 onwards, and a bit of a more financial planning question. But yeah, so you can sort of see how those 2 accounts can be used to build your wealth. But the main message is they both have great tax advantages. So use them as much as you can, whether through your employer, through your own money. Just, try and use up those allowances.
No, I agree. And you know what? That's the one thing I miss about being employed is that employer contribution. Because at the moment, I'm having to pay myself and also cover the employer contribution that I'm missing out on. So guys, if you are employed and you're working a 9 to 5, please take advantage of the employer contributions, because obviously your future self will love you for it, won't it?
Yeah, literally. And so many misconceptions or misunderstandings of workplace pensions. But first of all, if you have a workplace pension, you are an investor, because that money will be invested into something. It's surprising how many people don't realise that. Number two, it's literally your money.
Yeah.
So it's your money as well. It's not like the employer's looking after, like they're using the pension provider.
Yeah.
You're an investor, it's your money. So if you have got a workplace pension, you really need to get access to it. Get the login details through HR at your work, for whoever it is, or go directly to the pension provider. You should have been provided some sort of document to know who it's with, and actually get access, see what your money's been invested into, see how much you have, see what fees you're paying. And if you make a few little decisions, you can probably actually make yourself end up with a lot more money in the end. But yeah, if you've got a workplace pension, you are an investor and it's your money. So get access to it as soon as possible and actually understand what's going on a bit.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I feel like not many people, I'm not saying you have to check your pension every single day, but not enough people check their pension and see, one, what's going on, what they're actually investing in, especially if you have, you know, a lot of love for like a strong social cause. You actually might be investing in things that you actually don't agree with. So that's one thing that's really important. But also when it comes to maximising your workplace pension, how can people actually go about doing that?
Yeah, so use myself as an example. In both my UK and Australian workplace pensions, I've been auto-enrolled into just a bad fund where it's very high fee. It's not that diversified. There's some like cash and bonds and stuff that I don't want. I'd rather be just 100% invested into stocks, stock market, because that's what's going to give me the best return over the next 30 odd years until I access the money. So yeah, you actually need to, most important thing once you get access is actually see what your money's been invested into and see what fees you're paying. So in my very first UK pension, I was auto-enrolled into a high fee fund, 0.85%.
Oh, wow.
It's a bit of a manual job, and I sort of was typing in like world and global and trying to sort of find a fund that I like. But I've settled on a global index fund that was low cost, 0.2%. So I literally cut my, and I talk about this in the book as well, cut my fees by 75%, and I'm in a better fund that's investing 100% in stocks. I've got lower fees and I'm almost certainly going to get better returns. Of course, nothing's certain, but generally speaking, the stock market is the best performing asset class over the long term. So I want to be 100% in the stock market, especially in my pension, where I can't access that money for 30 odd years. And yeah, that simple half an hour investment genuinely has probably put like multiple six figures in my pocket over the long term. I'm still, well, when I go back, I'm in Australia at the moment. When I go back to the UK, I'll start contributing it to, again, lower fees, hopefully more returns. And yeah, that's how you put just more money, very simply, back into your pocket. It's a bit daunting. I know most people aren't like us, don't like looking at the money and talking about it. But if you can just take one weekend, spend a couple of hours, get access to it, see where your money's being invested, have a look if it's some sort of high fee fund or there's some cash or bonds or other stuff that you don't really want to be invested into, particularly if you're younger and have 30, 40 years investing ahead of you, make that decision to switch what fund you're being invested into, and then you'll almost certainly put more money in your pocket.
Yeah, I agree. And it doesn't even have to be 2 hours. I remember when I worked my very first job out of university, I was 22, and me and my best mate at the time, he's still my best mate, I don't know what I said at the time, but we were working together. Throwback, sorry Tom, he listens to the podcast. But yeah, both of us spent an afternoon just looking at our investments, and I was like, Tom, we've got to change. So we literally, within half an hour, looked at different funds that was offered within our workplace pension. And yeah, we made that switch. And again, it's something not many people are aware of. But yeah, guys, please make sure you do. And I guess back to investing then, obviously we've got the pensions. And if you have a pension, guys, like Ryan said, you are an investor. But people are looking to start investing in the stock market now. What are some beginners' tips? Because I feel like, again, where we talk about investing all the time, we're just like, pick a platform or pick a fund. But how do beginners actually start? Yeah,
so there's like a theoretical side to it and then a practical side.
Yes.
So to start with the sort of theoretical side, and this is the 3-step blueprint that I talk about and I mentioned already. First of all, you need to pick a platform, then pick an account, then pick a fund. Picking a platform, in the UK, we're sort of spoilt for choice. There's so many platforms. The one that I mainly use is one called Vanguard, who are the second largest asset manager in the world. I'm not sponsored by them. If I was, maybe one day, but I'm not. I just talk about them because I like them. Other good platforms though, Trading212, Invest Engine. There's loads of good platforms in the UK. Maybe speak to friends, family, see what they use. You can also like try out platforms.
For sure.
Make accounts on loads of them, see which one you like the most. But the most important things, in my opinion, to look for are platforms that are low fee and platforms that are reputable and safe, because ultimately it's your money. You want to make sure they're regulated, they have FSCS protection, those sorts of things. that generally though that is a bit of sort of mud to wade through, but pick a platform, do that. Then pick an actual account. This one's actually quite easy because the best 2 accounts in the UK are stocks and shares ISAs and pensions.
Yeah.
You probably got a workplace pension already, so that's your pension. If you're self-employed or got your own business, you might have a SIP, which you can contribute to. And then of course you got a stocks and shares ISA. Whatever platform you open, hopefully they'll offer both a stocks and shares ISA and a SIP. So if you wanted to, you could have both of those accounts on the one platform.
Yeah.
So platform, low fee and reputable. Accounts, we sort of talked through and touched on how ISAs and pensions work already. The third and final step is probably the most difficult one, just because there are literally, and that's what to actually invest into.
Yeah.
And there's literally thousands of options. So individual stocks, there's thousands. Index funds and ETFs, there's thousands. It's a bit of a minefield. My personal approach, and what I've sort of, I guess, preached for many years on social media, and I think it's the simplest way to build your wealth, is simply by picking just one global index fund. So an index fund is simply a basket of stocks. So you've probably heard of the FTSE 100, the largest 100 UK companies, the S&P 500.
That's the classic one, isn't it?
That's what everyone talks about, the largest 500 US companies. I then want to be essentially globally diversified.
Yeah.
So rather than invest into individual country index funds, which are still good because they're diversified and they're low fee, I invest into global index funds.
Yeah.
So in my Vanguard Stocks and Shares ISA and SIP, that is the FTSE Global All Cap, which is a low cost global index fund that has over 7,000 stocks in it. But then also in my new Australian accounts, my workplace pension and my Vanguard Australia account, I've also, in both of those accounts, just have one global fund.
Okay.
So you can invest into multiple funds. You can invest into individual stocks. As you mentioned, if you want to invest into, ESG funds, you can.
Yeah.
But I personally just like to keep my approach as simple and as like low maintenance as possible, which is why I just use one global index fund in each account that I have essentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, the FTSE Global All Cap would be my favorite one. Ultimately, it's people's own money. You can invest into whatever you want.
Yes.
So literally do what you want, but that's just what I do. And I think that's the easiest way to invest really, because you just need one fund. It's easy to understand. That's how I've got my whole family set up investing as well. So that's all like the theoretical side. The practical side is actually very easy. Making an actual account, it's just like almost signing up to a social media platform.
Yeah, literally that. Or a new bank.
Yeah, it takes like a few, or a new bank's probably a better example actually. You just go onto the website or go onto the App Store, download Vanguard, Trading 212, Free Trade, whoever it is, and you literally just put in some details, and then probably as part of the sign up process, you'll open up a stocks and shares ISA or a SIP or whatever account you have, and then you just pick an investment. Whether you set up an automatic investment, which I generally suggest, I think the more you can automate, the better. But you'll either set up an automatic investment and that'll come out every single month, or you can manually add cash to your account and then buy investments on that app or website. So the actual, I think once again, people think it's daunting, like, what do I do? But it's literally just, if you just Google like Vanguard, create an account, Trading 212, create an account, whatever platform it is, it takes a few minutes. It's really simple. So that's the actual practical side. And then hopefully if you can open up an account, for example, just as an example, Trading 212, stocks and shares ISA, and you set up an automatic investment into a global fund or the S&P 500, and then you're literally 99% of the way there.
Yeah.
Anything extra to do, you don't need to. You can do if you want. But yeah, that's then you're an investor. And then all you got to do, and that's sort of actually the subtitle of the book, Build Wealth with 10 Minutes of Work. Because I actually got my mum set up doing this last year in 8 minutes.
Wow.
And most of that time was spent recording the TikTok. So it takes like a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes to get set up. And then all you need to do every single year is just, hopefully if you get a pay rise, log in, increase your contributions, avoid lifestyle inflation. Or if you get a bonus at work, come into some money, log in, lump sum investment. And other than that, everything's an autopilot and you can just chill and enjoy your life.
See, guys, this is exactly why I have Ryan on the podcast, because that was a very in-depth but needed answer, because like I said, it's very easy for us to be like, oh yeah, just invest your money, but everyone's like, but how, Walla? So that was really, really useful. And I think hopefully you don't mind me calling you this, but we're both very lazy investors. We've literally just got a fund or two. Like I have two funds that I invest in, have my direct debits coming out, and that's it.
Simple as that. I think as well as like a common misconception, when I first started, you see like Wolf of Wall Street and Big Short, you see all this stuff on the news, like
all
stuff
these
flashing.
graphs and the reds and the greens, and
so it must be complicated. But It really hasn't got to be. You can do all that if you want, but it's actually very difficult to sort of beat the market, as we call it, to beat an index fund by doing all that stuff. Most people don't, because it's hard to pick winning stocks and winning funds. It also incurs a lot of fees by trading a lot. So by doing this sort of low cost, low fee, passive index fund and ETF investing style, you're almost, nothing's guaranteed of course, but almost guaranteed over the decades to build some wealth, particularly if we have like a good few decades in the markets like the ones that have just gone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what I always say to people as well is when you're picking your fund and you're doing your research, because a lot of people find the research side very daunting, is to literally Google has it. So if you literally Googled FTSE 100 stock market performance and you zoom out since the inception, that's enough to show you the risk associated with investing. Because again, I think loads of people think investing is risky. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think in the short term, if you look at, even looking at my portfolio, 3 months, 6 months, it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
When I look out over the last 7 years I've been invested now, it is almost straight up.
Yeah.
But through the last 7 years I've been investing, my whole first year, I was actually in the red because of a mini crash at the end of 2018. There was then obviously the pandemic.
Yes, that was a massive drop.
There was then record high modern interest rates, record high modern inflation. There's been multiple wars going on. There's been like mad elections all around the world, and yet the stock market is still up. I think I was actually looking at this morning. The S&P 500 over the last year is up 30%.
Wow.
And the global funds the last year are up 24%. So savings rates are good at 4 or 5% now. And you do need to save for certain goals, but you have to invest or you're just going to fall so far behind by just saving your money. But you do make a good point as well. I honestly think one of the biggest barriers to entry is the fund names.
Yes, like so true.
Vanguard FTSE Global All Cap Index Fund Accumulation.
Yeah.
That's one I use. Or like Vanguard S&P 500 VUAG Accumulation.
Yeah.
It's so...
Yeah, or like DIST or something, all of that. Yeah.
What you can do is, if you look at a specific fund, so Vanguard on their website have good sort of like breakdowns of the fund, but even on other platforms, you can normally find breakdowns or look for the key investor document.
Yes.
And what that will tell you essentially is there'll be an objective of the fund. So you can read that and that will essentially tell you what the fund is invested into. So if you look at an S&P 500 one, it should say something like this invests into large sized US companies. If you look into a global one, like the FTSE Global All Cap, it should hopefully say something like it invests into companies all around the world, or it might say developed economies and emerging economies, and companies of large, medium, and small sizes. So I think, the fund names are a barrier to entry because they're very confusing. But if in doubt, as you said, just Google the fund and look at the website or look at the fund fact sheet or the key investor document and actually look at what the objective is and look at what it's invested into. One good point you made as well, though, accumulation versus distribution. That's probably one of the most important distinctions. Accumulation funds reinvest all of the dividends automatically, whereas income funds pay the dividends out as cash. So you definitely want to use accumulation funds unless you need the income for now. But most people invest in for decades or at least years. By using accumulation funds, all your dividends are going to be automatically reinvested. So it makes it even more automatic. And by reinvesting all those dividends, you're going to grow and compound and snowball your wealth even more. I talk about this in the book as well, like some studies on dividend reinvestments, but over the long term, decades and decades, about half of your return will likely come from reinvesting dividends. So it's really important to reinvest those dividends because they will then grow and compound as you're adding more, and hopefully the fund's going up in value as well. And all of that then contributes to sort of massive compound interest.
Yeah, and it adds to your £500 magic number.
Yeah.
But in case anyone's listening right now and they don't know what dividends are, please can you explain?
Yeah, that's a good question. So dividends are just simply money that is paid to companies, to people that hold their stock or share to reward them for essentially having it. So if you have one share of McDonald's, you will get a dividend either quarterly or yearly, depending on the company, just to reward you for doing that. So generally speaking, companies that are fast growing, so like Tesla, Amazon, they won't pay dividends because any spare cash, they'll be reinvesting back into the business. Whereas generally older, more stable companies will pay cash or pay dividends to their people that hold their stock, just reward them for doing that. And those dividends, if you can reinvest them, are really powerful. Then when it comes to funds, they will inherently invest into hundreds or if not thousands of companies, particularly if it's a global fund. So that almost certainly will also pay a dividend. And if you can then use the accumulation version of the fund, all those dividends will be automatically reinvested. And yeah, once again, if you can automate your monthly contributions, use an accumulation fund, all your dividends are automatically reinvested, automate as much as you can, then just enjoy your life, essentially.
Yeah, we promise, guys, investing is simple. But to frame it in the sense of when it comes to dividends, so I went to Bali last year for 2.5 weeks, and I came back, was really, really tired, couldn't think of anything worse than working, but got an email saying, oh, Ola, you check your Vanguard account because you've just been paid dividends, and I got paid £140 by one of my funds. So that's literally me doing nothing. I was severely jet lagged, and I got £140, and that made my morning. Yeah. So yeah, guys, please don't underestimate the power of investing because it's actually incredible. But I guess when it comes to investing in the stock market, people see these YouTubers or, you know, content creators that apparently know how to teach you guys how to 10x your money, right? So what are some common investing mistakes, and what mistakes do we need to avoid to ensure we actually hit our millionaire retirement goal?
Definitely avoid those bullshit fake gurus. 100%. If it sounds too good to be true, 100% is. It's very unlikely to 10x your investments instantly. Yeah. So just avoid all of that stuff. But to be honest with you, so to talk about some of the biggest mistake you can make, this is a bit cliche, but the biggest risk is not investing. If you're spending your money or saving your money, you're really going to just have to work forever. Yeah. You need to actually invest through a stocks, shares, ISA, for a workplace pension to actually get to the point where you can one day hopefully live off of that money. And even if you're starting later or your pot's not going to be that big, even if you have like 50 grand, a small amount after years and years of investing, you can still live off it a little bit, supplement your lifestyle, pass it on to kids, give it back to someone. So yeah, the biggest risk is not starting. So hopefully this podcast helps people actually get started. But to talk through some of the mistakes that I made in my back in 2017, 2018 when I first started, one of them was using a high street bank as an investment platform. Generally speaking, you want to use an actual investment platform to invest. High street banks often have higher fees, not always, but often have higher fees and less options. But I thought at the time, I've got a bank, I've got to then make a account with them. You don't need to. There's dedicated investment platforms, and we've mentioned quite a few already in this podcast. The second mistake I made was then using a general investment account. Yes. So we've not actually talked about that yet, but when it comes to choosing an account, you've got stocks and shares, ISAs, pensions, and then the third main one is a general investment account. The only thing is general investment accounts have no tax advantages. So I actually speak to people and they make an account on Vanguard or Trading 212 and don't realize they're using a general investment account. Yeah. You want to use a stocks and shares ISA or pension, as we mentioned, because of the tax advantages. So using the general investment account was a mistake I made. I then eventually opened up a stocks and shares ISA and I invested into a high fee active fund. Okay. I think this was like another 0.8, 0.9% high fee fund. Yeah. Your total fees that you pay across everything per year should be 0.5% or less. Okay. That's your platform fee and your fund fee. Anything more than that, I'd say is high fee, and you should be able to reduce them. Other mistakes, like you alluded to, just reading stuff online, trying to pick stocks and just put my money into tips you'd see online or hear from mates, and it never works out. No. Honestly, it never works out. And then also paying really high fees. Yeah. So when I first started my pensions, I was automatically enrolled into high fee funds. I switched those, but even at the start, I was paying high fees by using high fee funds, bad platforms. So by using a low cost platform and a low cost fund, you can massively reduce your fees and have more money compounding in your pocket over the long term. One more thing I'd say as well is, and we spoke about automation quite a lot, but the reason why automation is so important is because it's impossible to time the market. Yeah. As we've said, there's been so much mad stuff that's happened recently, and the stock market is still just booming. Yes. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen, and it's there's a classic line where it's economists to predict 30 of the last 3 recessions, because all they do every single month is predict a recession, and then it never happens. Then it eventually happens, and they're famous because they're right. They've been predicting it for years and years. Yeah. And then in the meantime, between this recession and the last recession, the stock market's gone up and it's still higher than it was before. So, and that's just what happens over the long term. Companies around the world become more productive, become more innovative, make better products, make more money. And if you're investing into a global index fund, you can take part of that and then build your wealth alongside that over the long term. You're not going to get rich quick, if you put all your money into Tesla and it boomed, but then it's impossible to predict and time what's going to happen.
Take crypto, for example. Yeah, did not think it was going to boom as much as it has.
No, it hasn't. Out of nowhere. That's impossible to predict. Yeah. So that's why I'd say automate everything, and don't try and time the market. And that was another mistake I made in my early days. So yeah, those were sort of some mistakes that came to mind, all ones I made myself. So sharing now, and hopefully people can avoid making them.
A lot of mistakes, but I'm glad you made them because now we can learn from them and not have to do the same. But no, I agree. I think for me, my biggest regret or mistake, well, maybe not mistake, but maybe regret, but I guess you learn, right, is just not investing earlier. But I guess that comes down to lack of education and also not investing as much as I did when I very first started. So I was very scared, very skeptical, but I guess you learn, don't you?
Yeah, I feel that's like classic. You start a bit nervous, then like a few years later, you're like, imagine I invested double the amount back then.
Always.
Like, so much more money now.
Maybe I'd be a millionaire.
And that's why it's like good to sort of financially educate yourself on these, read some books, like listen to some podcasts, understand it a bit, and then take the dive. And it is good starting small because you can sort of get used to how volatile the markets are, how unpredictable they are. You can build a good habit of investing every single month what you can afford to. But then, once you feel confident, I guess the way to think about it is the more you can invest every single month, the more years you can retire earlier.
Yes.
So if you can invest a high percentage of your salary, if you're in that fortunate position, you can literally potentially take a decade, retire a decade earlier, because the end goal really is your investments, then fund your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So stop waiting, start investing.
Yeah.
And then keep investing as much as you can, and then eventually retire early.
No, I love that. I think that's the perfect note to end this podcast episode. I feel like this episode has been packed with so many gems. Genuinely, guys, I hope you've made note and you actually do start investing this year, because I feel like the new year is always a good time to reevaluate your goals. And if investing is one of them, then definitely, hopefully this podcast will help you to do so. But yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. It's
so nice to have you in person. Guys, I've not seen them in like 2 years in the flesh. So it's really, really nice to be reunited. And yeah, I guess before I let you go, if anyone wants to buy a copy of your book,
buy it now. Stop
If anyone wants to buy a copy of your book, wants to check out your podcast, check out your YouTube channel, or just follow you online, where can they go to do so?
Yeah, the book is out, Amazon, Waterstones, WH Smiths. If you order it, you're an absolute legend. So thank you very much. It sort of does talk about a lot of stuff we've talked about today, just sort of condensed in a structured way. And then, making money simple on most platforms. I'm trying to pump out some content as regularly as I can.
Yes.
Mixing that with while I was juggling the day job and everything else. But making money simple. If you've got any questions, feel free to DM me anytime. I can try and help you out or point you in the right direction. But stop waiting, start investing, of course.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ryan. And like I said, guys, please go buy a copy of your book because I mentioned in it. So if there's one reason to buy it, it's
all is in there. Read it and then send a photo of it.
Yeah. So please do send us a picture or drop Ryan or myself a message. We do grab a copy, or just your overall feedback on the podcast as well. But yeah, Ryan, thank you so much.
Cheers, Ola.